Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Blind Press YouTube channel. And it is another day for a coffee stream. And it is indeed Wednesday, which means that it is Wacky Wednesday. So let's get wacky, as what's it called? The description says. I can English. I promise. I swear to God, I can English. So as I said, I hope everyone is having a good Wednesday. And I do apologize for not having a Beat the Blind Girl yesterday at all. It was supposed to be last night, but I was in a shitload of pain. And I could not, I had to sit in the bath for like almost 2 hours. And yeah, it was bad. So there was no way I was going to be able to game last night. So of course, tomorrow morning will be Beat the Blind Girl, and today we are back with coffee stream time. So let's get started here. I'm just gonna quickly put this out again on Twitter. We will get this shared out once more. There we go. Okay. All right. So I have a video and an article for us today. We have a plainly difficult video from 4 months ago. It is about the facial recognition experiment from the 1920s. I actually didn't know that there was such a thing. And I always really enjoy plainly difficult stuff because he makes it very informative without being super long-winded. So if you haven't checked out Plainly Difficult before, what I will do here, I will search him up and post the link in the channel. Oops. Because he's awesome and you should go subscribe to Plainly Difficult if you have not already. He is at 777,000 subscribers. He is great. Where is it? I need the channel link. Okay. Go to channel. That's what I want. More actions. Share channel. That's it. Copy link. That's also what I want. Okay. Hey, Duck Dog. How you doing, sir? And that is the link to Plainly Difficult's channel. So we're going to take a look at a video from him. And we're also going to read an article about William Shatner. Let's actually start with the William Shatner article. Actually, no, you know what? We'll finish with the William Shatner article. We'll start with the Plainly Difficult video. That's what we'll do. Because that video is half an hour long. So with with pauses and everything, that'll take us through most of the stream. So I think that should be fun. And then we'll end it with the William Shatner article. That's what we'll do. All righty. Oh, that's not what I wanted. Oops, I made a mistake. I made a mistake. Silly me. All right. Where is it here? What I need to find is, how did I not share this with myself? That is really stupid. I could have sworn I did that. What a stupid, stupid person I am. Quite, quite literally. That was very stupid of me not to have shared this link with myself because I'm pretty damn sure that I wanted to share this with myself. So, yeah, that was very stupid of me. Okay. Let's try this again, folks. So we're going to be learning about this is one of his dark side of science videos. And we are going to be learning about something called the facial expression experiment. The video is called The Horrors of the Facial Recognition Experiment of 1924. So this, I have actually not heard of this particular experiment. So I'm very interested to figure out or learn what happened in this in this experiment. So let's get into this here now that I have actually shared the stupid link with myself. Now I can stop rambling. Okay. So let's do this here. Okay, so as I said, this is called The Dark Side of Science, The Horrors of the Facial Expression Experiment. So here we go. Let's get this shared over here. And where's that share button? There it is. Now called present, or present, I should say, not present. Isn't it interesting how pronouncing things in English changes the meaning of the word? Present means gift or I am here, and present means to show somebody something. Isn't that odd? Okay, now that I'm really done rambling. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. Let's get this into theater mode for you guys. And here we go with The Dark Side of Science, The Horrors of the Facial Expression Experiment of 1924 from Plainly Difficult.
The human face. It makes us who we are. It is the center of our senses, and as such, it is vital in the way we communicate. But not what you think. Yes, we use our mouths to talk, but our faces are much more than that for broadcasting our thoughts and feelings.
And this is where I fall short as a blind person because not only do I not realize that my face may be portraying a specific expression, I cannot see other people's expressions. So all I have to go on is tone of voice and the actual words that are spoken with that tone of voice. And that is a big problem in my life. Like, it is hard to tell when somebody, like, unless they're using a supremely heavily sarcastic tone, for example, that they're being sarcastic. If unless they're, as I said, using this almost cartoonish level of sarcasm. Um it's it's very difficult when you can't see facial expressions and when you can't see your own facial expression, to know what's going on and what you are conveying.
Just one look at a person's expression can tell you so much about the emotional state of the individual. A smile, a frown, a scowl, each one can tell you how to interact with someone.
Right. And
Although
I
this
don't
is
have
something we
any of
take for
those.
granted as a natural part of the human condition, some scientists have looked to categorize and study our facial expressions. One such study took place in 1924, and in order to create genuine reactions in its test subjects, various stimuli were used.
Oh boy, this doesn't sound like it's going to end well. I'm wondering if this is where the pseudoscience of micro expressions comes from. You know how in some Criminal Minds episodes they mention micro expressions when it comes to profiling and body language? I wonder if that's where that comes from.
Which would bizarrely culminate in the participants being
It's
asked to behead
Costin.
a
Hello,
rat in
Costin.
order to track their facial expressions. My name is John, and today we're looking at the 1924 facial expression experiment. Welcome to the dark side of science.
Micro expressions are a real thing. No, I didn't say they weren't. I was saying how they were applied. Like, the way that TV makes them look like they're used is what I'm talking about. Because there's a difference between actual body language people use micro expressions and the way that they make it seem like on shows like Criminal Minds and crap like that. Like, that's what I meant.
Carney Landis was born on the 11th of January 1897 in West Alexandria, Ohio, a
West
small town with
Alexandria,
a population
Ohio.
of around 700 at the end of the 19th century. Carney would attend State University, where he majored in psychology,
Hmm.
graduating in 1921. Study would not end for Landis, however, when he gained his master's a year later from Dartmouth College in 1922.
I didn't know that. I guess, no, that makes sense because Freud was doing psychoanalysis in. Yeah. Yeah, no, okay. No, I just had to readjust my thinking about the timeline of psychology. Okay, yeah.
This was whilst he was working as a psychology instructor. Upon completion of his master's, Landis moved to the University of Minnesota to study for his doctorate. During his education, Landis read various scientific studies into facial expressions.
How many studies would have been available by that point? That's got to be interesting. And so he went from Ohio State University, I believe, and then to Dartmouth College and then to Minnesota University. Okay.
Moved to the University of Minnesota to study for his doctorate. During his education, Landis read various scientific studies into facial expressions, one of which was Darwin's The Expression of the Emotions of Man and Animals.
Oh, okay. So Darwin, in his study of evolution, was also looking into facial expressions of not only humans but animals as well, probably like monkeys and other mammals.
His third book in his series of works on evolution, The
Yeah.
book looks to delve into emotions of humans and animals alike and features multiple pictures of faces in various different emotional states.
Hmm.
For the animal kingdom, Darwin shows various expressive movements of dogs, cats, horses, ruminants, and monkeys.
So yeah, mammals, which makes sense. That because a lot of people tend to look at mammals as being probably the most close to sentient animals apart from humans. Like if you look at a monkey or like a gorilla or an ape, um so it I could see why Darwin would be studying monkeys. Are you being racist? Ah, pink hollow, nice. He goes, I don't know, but I can blame you for a lack of OnlyFans views, though. Nice, pink hollow.
He visualizes various facial expressions in the book, showing joy, affection, pain, anger, astonishment, and terror.
Hmm,
The book
interesting.
also has photographs and illustrations of human faces in various states of emotion, from happiness to fear and anger. The book was originally released in 1872, with a second edition compiled by Darwin's son in 1890.
Okay, so we have this would have predated Landis by 50 years, yeah, 50, about 40 or 50
And
years.
this was likely the version that Landis studied.
The
One of the
latter
other main
version. Yeah.
works that Carney took inspiration from was R. Schultz's Experimental Psychology and Pedagogy, released, translated into English in 1912. This work touches on facial expressions
Okay.
and looks at the links between psychology and education. There are a number of different
So facial expressions, the links between those and psychology and education. All right, interesting.
photographs of subjects' reactions to
That's
different stimuli,
an
but it doesn't see
interesting. That's an interesting link between facial expressions and the ability to get education and your psychology. Interesting.
out to find the reason why. The final, and probably the work that Carney would take as a basis for his later experiments, was Herbert Langfield's The Judgment of Emotions from Facial Expressions in 1918.
These seem like really interesting. Like as a blind person, I might actually want to read these because it it always fascinates me when people come up, like when people in my family or my friends are like, "Hey, are you okay? You look angry or you look sad." And I'm just like, "I'm just sitting here." Like, and I'm wondering if is it because I don't know, like, cuz when Picalos is taking pictures of me and he says smile, unless something naturally funny occurs to me, I feel like even if it's not a giant smile, I feel like I'm making a Joker face because I don't know if I'm doing the right thing. Hey, selective boy. I don't know if I'm making the right expression, so it feels odd. And when and the other thing, like when people say, "Oh, you look upset," I'm wondering, I'm like, am I really just that constantly subconsciously sad that that's just how my face goes to? It's weird. You look like there's a gun to your head when you should be in the happiest of happy moods. Yeah. Like even when I'm doing stuff that I like doing, like playing video games, doing stuff with Pink Hollow, like playing with the kids, like I don't, like my face doesn't change and it kind of sucks. Like I'm not going to lie, it sucks a lot.
This study would take place at Harvard's psychological laboratory. Langfield made use of 6 subjects, 4 men and 2 women, and showed each person 105 images of an
105
illustration made
images.
from a
Okay.
photograph of an actor's face. Each expression was meant to convey a certain emotion. After being shown the image, the subject was then required to write down their interpreted emotion.
Okay.
Landis thought that this experiment had a problem, though, and that was because of the authenticity of the expression of the actor.
Oh, because they're acting. So it's not a genuine expression of whatever emotion that is. It's a simulated one because they're acting. Not only mimicking, but the eye movement isn't translated either. No, exactly. If it's hard to smile in a photo because if you do, it looks fake. If you don't, it looks like you're in prison. Yes, yes, exactly. And it's very hard.
The results from the Langfield experiment were pretty interesting, however. Although the study was not unique in finding that we can judge emotion from a picture, I mean, look at artwork in general from history.
Right.
You can tell we can understand emotion from a still image of a facial expression. But it did find that the general consensus from his 6 subjects was that each picture conveyed a particular emotion.
Right.
Even the more subjective images that contained subtle emotional state cues, such as half crying and laughing.
So they were able to tell that the facial expressions conveyed emotion, but I think they were saying that it wasn't like a specific, like they weren't on point exactly with what the emotion was. I think that's what he's saying.
In post experiment interviews, each subject was asked where do they look first when judging a facial expression.
The
And
eyes.
interestingly, each gave slightly different answers. For
Really?
example, one person stated they stared at the mouth first, and another saying that they tried to imagine themselves with that expression and how it would make them feel.
Interesting. That's I would have thought that everybody's answer would have been the same, and I would have thought that it would have gone for the eyes. That is very interesting that people said different things.
Of course, modern day eye tracking experiments are more reliable at seeing what we look at first, but Langfield's experiment is interesting to see the thought processes of the subjects as they examine the images presented to them. Landis would achieve his PhD in 1924, and it quickly led him into the experiment that would put his name down in infamy.
Uh-oh.
Landis took from the books and papers he had studied and saw a question unanswered.
Okay.
What is one's facial expression when exposed to real world stimuli?
Okay, so we know how people react when we see pictures of faces. So I think he's trying to say if I apply direct real world things to real world people, will their facial expressions differ from still images?
Schultz's experimental psychology and pedagogy did touch on this by giving children bitter, sour, and sweet tasting items.
Anthrax Allen, hello. He said, Anthrax Allen says, I can't look people in the eyes usually unless I'm having a serious conversation with them. Oh, interesting. That is very interesting. I did not know that. My eyes, I like they're prosthetic, right? But my mom always taught me that I needed to point my face toward the person that I'm speaking to just to show them that I'm like paying attention to them. But I never, obviously I don't know if I'm actually looking them in the eye or not.
And photographed their expressions. However, Landis wanted to go deeper. He wanted to see if there was universal expressions for certain stimuli.
Okay.
Landis started off with his studies of emotional reactions, a preliminary study of facial expression in mid 1924.
So he wants to see if there are universal expressions for specific stimulus. So like does every human being cry if somebody says like I hate you, or does every human being have an angry expression if somebody insults their family, or like something like that.
He made use of 19 test subjects, all
Okay.
men from Dartmouth College. The experiment was set up in a regular laboratory room. In order to record the facial expressions, Landis had access to a motion picture and ordinary still producing cameras.
So could you imagine like 1920s motion picture equipment and still camera equipment in this lab? Like, this had to be some intimidating setup, man. Like, and could you imagine the amount of flash bulbs going off for every picture taken? Just the thunk with the whine of the flash bulb. Oh man, that would
Landis had a specially constructed table behind which the subject was seated. This was placed in the center of his setup. In a wall 8 feet from the subject in front of them, several small openings were cut, through
okay.
which cameras were focused. Before the experiment would begin, Landis said to the subject, "I'm making a study of facial expressions. All you have to do is to be seated behind the table and act as naturally as possible."
Just sit there and act as naturally as possible. This doesn't seem any more that doesn't seem any more valid than the previous experiment with looking at pictures of things. He's looking for general emotions in everyone, but everyone conveys emotion differently and at different times. Yes. Yeah. This is why I'm like, this is not going to end well. This is going to be a bad This is going to be a bad time. I have a feeling.
In the various situations that follow, don't try to be emotional or show a poker face.
Don't
Try to
try.
forget the
Okay.
cameras and act
Yeah,
natural.
try to
Various
forget the
stimuli from 9
cameras.
categories were presented to each subject, and after each situation, a card was given to the participant with a number of emotions written on it, such as boredom, abstraction, dreamy, indifference, interest. Also a space labelled feelings other than those mentioned. Each situation,
You're supposed to
however,
check
would
them.
have a slightly different card. The experiment's stimuli started off pretty tame, culminating in a fairly harsh finale. First off was classical.
A fairly harsh finale, huh? I wonder what that would be, and what does it fairly tame mean? Like, here are some pictures of rabbits and puppies and little children that are playing happy games. Now here's a picture of your family, and I've killed them all. Like, what?
Would have a slightly
What
different
harsh
card.
reality?
The experiment's stimuli started off pretty tame, culminating in a fairly harsh finale.
Go sit
First
on
off
that
was
black
classical
couch and
music,
act
a
naturally. Yeah.
phonographic reproduction of Die Walküre by Wagner.
Oh,
Around a quarter of the subjects indicated interest, with the remaining showing indifference or boredom. Landis noted of the facial expression of a vacant stare in most.
a
In
vacant
the similar
stare.
vein, the second stimuli was jazz music, a phonographic reproduction of My Man. The majority of the subjects indicated a rhythmic feeling, with around a quarter indicating boredom or indifference. This was
Jazz is either very boring or it's got some rhythm.
shown on the facial expression, with 12 cracking a smile, and the opposite for the remainder of the subjects.
A frown.
The third stimulus was this time visual,
Oh.
with Giorgione's Sleeping Venus and Bulgiero's
Sleeping
Birth of Venus. Both images are of unclothed women.
Oh my.
Most indicated sex appeal and aesthetic appreciation, with the remaining indicating indifference.
Uh, uh, uh. Indifference to a naked female in the 1920s? That's interesting. Usually I would have figured, "Oh my god."
The facial expressions are shown to be smiling or smirking.
Yeah.
For the fourth stimulus, they were shown paintings of Christ, and the facial expressions were mainly of a frown, which correlated with most indicating sadness, religious feelings, or indifference. From the fifth
So
stimulus all the way to the
sadness.
ninth, things started to get of a
Hold on.
frown.
So with the paintings of Christ, we see sadness and religious feeling, which I get the religious feeling, but the sadness, maybe I guess this is like, are they Old Testament like reading people? I don't know. Like usually when people think of Christ, I thought that they felt happiness, but I could be wrong.
Which correlated with most indicating sadness, religious feelings, or indifference. From the fifth stimulus all the way to the ninth, things started to get a little bit more cruel, starting with vulgar pictures of direct sex appeal.
Oh.
A strip of pictures depicting various adult acts was used.
Ha!
The subjects recorded disgust, repulsion, sex appeal, and feelings of absurdity and grotesque.
What adult acts were being depicted, I wonder, in the 1920s? Yeah. And what, like, I really do wonder what they were shown that would cause them to express that.
The facial expressions were a mixture of smirking all the way to pure disgust.
Right.
But interestingly, each subject let out a noticeable gasp when shown the stimuli. The
Interesting.
sixth stimulus were pictures to arouse horror or disgust. Illustrations in The Diseases of China by Jeffries and Maxwell were used. I've looked at the book and it is pretty upsetting with some of the images within.
The Diseases of China. What is that? Let's see. Let's look up this book. Let's take a look here. Let's take a look. Book page. Written in 1910, or published in 1910. William Hamilton Jeffries, James Lidlaw Maxwell. Oh, Formosa and Perea. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Huh. Yeah. Yeah. Those are not going to be some pretty pictures. those are not going to be some pretty pictures. See, it depends. All Pentecostals are joyous when it comes to Christ. All other Catholics are mournful. I'm going to give you a bit of religious fact. If it has to do with Christ, it has nothing to do with the Old Testament. That's a good point. That's a very good point. I should have... Something tells me this experiment was done primarily on Catholics. Probably. I apparently always look angry. Oh. So I'm wondering if this, well, Dartmouth College. I think Dartmouth College, that would be... Where is Dartmouth College located? No, idiot. I think that's in Massachusetts somewhere. It's in yeah, Hampshire, yeah, New England. So yeah,
Interestingly, because some of the participants were medical students, a high number indicated professional interest, with the
professional
second highest
interest. Yeah.
being pity. The expression shown is most indicated by a frown and a closed mouth. Number 7 on the list was odours. This consisted of 8 small bottles with various smelling dilute
Odors.
forms of
Okay.
cinnamon oil, spirits of peppermint, and others.
Huh.
But the final was the actual interesting item. The bottle was marked syrup of lemon, but actually contained ammonia.
Oh, so they lied. They lied about the actual oil, and that's not cool.
Needless to say, the reactions to the sweet smelling items resulted in generally happy expressions,
Yeah.
but the shock of the ammonia yielded an instant reaction of disgust, followed by a small smile. The penultimate stimulant was a bucket filled with frogs.
So a small smile. So kind of like, oh, followed by, oh, you fucker, you got me. That type of thing. A bucket of frogs. Why? What would a bucket of frogs do?
Each subject was told to put their hand inside and feel around. Instantly, a reaction of disgust was recorded until they were allowed to look inside, when most showed signs of relief and even a small smile.
So they were like, ew, what the hell is that? And then they look, oh, it's just frogs. Oh, okay. And again, it's the trickery. It's the, oh, you got me. That's what the small smile is, I think.
The final stimuli seemed to be the most cruel. It too involved a bucket. It had around 6 inches of water inside, and the subject was told with his right hand to hold onto a metal rod.
Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. I see exactly where this is going. Please tell me you're not going to electrocute your subjects.
And with his left hand to feel around in the bucket.
Oh God.
There was an induction coil placed in the bucket.
Oh,
As soon as the hand touched it, the circuit was complete, and the subject received a substantial electric shock.
that's fucking dangerous as fuck, dude. You could kill somebody doing that.
All of the subject's expressions immediately went to surprise, and in the questionnaire, most indicated surprise and pain. Landis had discovered
I would be angry.
that he could generate more accurate facial expressions with his initial experiment, but he felt like improvements could be made and set about planning the next step in his deep dive into expression.
You mean your next step into your deep dive of torture? Jesus Christ is right, selective boy. Holy crap.
He didn't manage to see any universal expression for any of the stimuli, as most of the subjects showed a whole range of slight differences, even including smiling during some of the more shocking situations. Maybe a bigger experiment with more people would help.
Maybe more torture subjects will be a good idea. Let's do that. Let's get more torture subjects and more torture implements. This is a good plan. I like it. I like it. This
Taking
is
what he
fun.
learnt from the earlier 1924 study, he wanted to create ever more real emotional disturbances and record the facial expressions generated. Furthermore, Landis wanted to make use of as many distinct forms of reaction as possible, culminating in significant emotional upset. Instead of the 9 stimulus categories from the first experiment, he upped it to 17.
Significant emotional upset. And now he's taking it from 9 categories to 17. Lovely. Just lovely. That just sounds like, what is it with some scientists and just being completely devoid of moral anything?
And some went well beyond the boundary of ethical. Also different in the second experiment was that women would be part of the study, as well as recording of blood pressure.
Oh, okay.
25 subjects would be used, consisting of 12 men, 12 women, and oddly, one male child.
Why are we picking children for this now? So we have 12 men, 12 women, and one male child. Awesome.
Another part that Landis criticised of his original study was that of the setting. You see, he felt that the previous setup felt too much like a laboratory. Well, it was,
It,
but that it might have coloured the reactions from his subjects, as they were always aware of the experimental nature of the situation they were in.
okay.
This time around, he sought out to make the experimental room more homely. The walls were redecorated, drapes were placed at the window, and several paintings were hung on the walls.
But you're still, like, your brain still knows that you're taking part in a study. It doesn't matter. Like, it. It's an experimental negative stimuli on psychic ability. Ha! Ghostbusters reference. No, but I really want to know if we have this. Just what is it about scientists and doing human experiments? I just don't understand.
So that the final effect gave a minimal suggestion of a laboratory.
And here's my other question, and I'm genuinely asking. If you need, like, is the brain that easily fooled if you have that visual distraction with, curtains and paintings and nicer furniture, stuff like that? Does that really, as sighted people, does that really actually trick your brain into calming you down, or does it not do anything? Because for me, a doctor's office can be as plushy as it wants to be. It still smells like a doctor's office. It still has the sounds of a doctor's office. And I just I can't I can't not know that it's a doctor's office. And I feel just as uncomfortable as I would if I didn't have all of the nice furniture and the comfy carpet and all that. People rely on sight more than they should. That I will say that's true, because there are a lot of times when it's like some I tell my kids are like, I can't see, and it's like not even completely dark, it's just dim, and I'm like, your eyes will adjust, stop it. You're fine.
This time around, the subjects were seated comfortably at the table. Behind stood a large screen which served as a photographic background.
Okay.
At either side of the subject stood a 1,000-watt lamp in a diffusing reflector. With this, illumination was possible to take better photographs at any time.
Okay, that's good. You're gonna want better photographs, but still, like, all of the camera equipment, all of this, like the table, that's going to make it feel like an experiment,
A
yes?
second room was used to house all the equipment, including the camera,
Oh,
which shot images through a small hole in the wall facing the subject.
okay. So that means that there wasn't all of the camera equipment, all that crap. Oh my.
A speaking tube and buzzer was provided between the two rooms, so that the experimenter in the subject's room could keep the assistant who was handling the apparatus in step with the procedure.
Okay.
Each subject before the experiment had a front and profile photo taken, and then to assist with facial studying after the experiment, each subject had their faces marked with black lines to highlight certain muscle groups.
Oh no, not black lines. That's problematic. You can't put black lines on people. Oh, fuck. Also, I love this channel. Oh, thank you. No, that was... So my youngest is home from school today. He's got a bit of a head cold. So he's playing a video game, and he's in Pincalo's office, and he was roaring at his game. So that's what that was.
Then another photograph, both front on and in profile, were taken with a grid placed over the camera to assist with later measuring. Every movement of the head was judged after each stimuli, and notes were made on every visual change of each subject's face. Each participant during the study would be subjected to roughly a 3-hour ordeal.
Holy shit. 3 hours per subject? There's 25 subjects. God damn. That is a lot of hours of study. That's 355 hours of study. Wait, no. 5 times 3, 15. No, yeah, I'm right. Hold on, guys. Buddy, what's up? I found a ship in the air. Okay, but you're being super loud. Yeah, and I can feel the wind in this game. What are you playing? Minecraft. Oh. Okay, well, stop yelling, okay? I love how he says Minecraft. He doesn't say he doesn't say Minecraft. He says Minecraft. Yeah, he says Minecraft. Didn't Gilligan get lost in that time?
And much like Landis's previous study, each stimuli would increase in severity. But the whole experiment was much better choreographed in order to keep the subject guessing and thus hopefully generate a more genuine reaction to the stimulus. Well, I've spoken around it enough. Let's actually look at the 1924 facial expression study.
Oh boy, here we go.
As I mentioned,
we have the parameters laid out. Let's find out what he did.
Mentioned before, the number of stimuli was increased over the earlier study, and as such, there was some crossover between both experiments. And this was because Landis reused some of the situations. However, he did modify them to achieve a greater reaction.
Okay.
The experiment would start off with the participant signing a slip stating that they would not divulge any information about the situations they will be exposed to.
I feel like, because you're supposed to start an experiment with an idea, a hypothesis, a question. You're not supposed to start with an answer already. And I feel like Landis had a preconceived idea that he was trying to prove, instead of, is this actually the case? And if not, why? Right? I feel like he was trying to prove that there were universal expressions for emotion, but instead of are there actually universal expressions for emotion? And if not, why? That's the experiment that should have been happening.
Then the subject would be led into the experiment room by an experimenter, who in most cases would be Landis himself for the men and a female assistant for the women.
Okay.
The aforementioned control photographs were taken and the faces would be marked up. Now, ready, the first stimuli would begin.
So the first, so they do, so the first two photos are done for a control group. Okay. And then they mark up the faces with the lines so they can see the muscles, the musculature. Okay.
The first two situations were music. That was aimed to calm any nerves of the participants.
All right.
For the first 10 minutes, the music was the pop music of the day, jazz. This disarmed the subjects, but things would ramp up in the second section when more complex technical music was played.
So we have like roaring 20s jazz, and then we have like more classical style music.
This was marked by their virtuosity and technique,
Yeah.
almost having no melody. Photographs and blood pressure measurements were taken. This would be for every section, although the images would be taken at the closest moment to the reveal of the stimuli.
Okay, so they have to take the pictures needed to be taken as close to the moment of the facial expression as possible. My silly child is sitting there like, I don't know, heavy music calms me. I'm the same way. Like if I'm upset, I will put on some really, like, even if it's just metal, but it's got to have like some really good solos in it, like whether it be a drum solo or a bass solo or a guitar solo. Like there has to be some sort of technical music that I can just crank. Do you know what I mean?
The next section brought an interesting subject into the mix, and that was being requested to read St. Luke 6, 18 to 49 out of the Bible. This required the participant to pick from two pieces of paper with a
Okay.
letter printed on it, a T for truth or L for lie. If L was selected, points of circumstantial evidence attaching the participant to some crime were written on. They were then meant to invent a lie which would clear them of the charges on a cross examination with the experimenter.
Interesting. That's a very interesting psychological test. I don't know what that would do for facial expressions though. I could see that being done for some other stuff, but wow, awesome. So yeah, it's yeah, that's a very interesting experiment.
If T was chosen, then an alibi was provided for the crime. This situation was used to try and induce anxiety and lengthen the total time of the experiment, as well as assert the experimenter's dominance. This is another carry across from the early experiment again. Again, like before, having several bottles with nice smelling fluids within, with the
Okay.
last having ammonia, mislabeled again as lemon syrup.
So they seem to be doing some repetitions. They've got the smell thing again with the same trick. I wonder if they had any, if they, I think he said that they didn't retain subjects. So if they had different subjects, then that would work. Very cool. I was eating cereal. Definitely a lie for me because I'm not a breakfast eater. Cool. Plainly difficult. Just replied, and he's like, no, as long as you attribute my videos, it's fine that you watch them. And so everybody go check out Plainly Difficult when we're done with this. I've put the link to his channel at the top of the live chat, and when the video renders, I will put the link to his channel in the description as well. So, thank you, Plainly Difficult. You are awesome.
Situation 5 would be the first taste of Landis's now trademark of misdirection in order to get a more natural reaction. Landis continues his misleading antics by having the experimenter say the subject had smudged the marks on their face.
Oh, I see what's going on now. Okay, I see.
And as such, they would need to reapply them. The experimenter would then go behind the screen. This would be the point they would signal to the other room to get ready for photographs and blood pressure readings. The experimenter then lit and set off a firecracker under the subject's chair.
What the fuck? Hey, you smudged your lines. We need to redo them. Hey, psst, psst, psst. Take pictures. Take their blood pressure. And now let's put this firecracker under the chair. Bang! Like, what the fuck? He makes music? Yes, he does. He's got a band camp. He is awesome. Yeah, he's got he makes music, he's got a band camp, and all that, so definitely go check that out.
Needless to say, this yielded a shocked expression from the participant. Although
a shocked expression? Again, I would be pissed. I wouldn't be shocked. I would be pissed. I would be like, hey, come here. Come here. No, I just want to give you a hug. Really, I just want to give you a hug. And then I'd like punch them in the face. That's what I'd want to do.
Though shocking, it has so far been a harmless type of diversion, not much more than a high school prank. This one is more bizarre. The subject was given a sheet of paper and a pencil and told to write a full description of the meanest or most contemptible or most embarrassing thing they ever did.
Interesting. So the meanest thing they've ever done. Like, so if the most embarrassing, mean, like nasty thing they've ever done. Yeah, that's interesting. I wonder.
As soon as they were finished, the experimenter would then read aloud this confession. Again, embarrassment and anxiety was the aim of the game here.
I bet.
Strangely, Landis wanted to see if he could make a universal joke to invoke a laugh. But this section was promptly removed after the second participant shrugged off the apparent humorous quip.
Because humor is subjective. Comedy is subjective. It's not objective. If somebody tells a joke and it falls flat, it's obviously not a funny joke, right? It's not funny. And I don't think you can make a universal joke because there's always going to be someone who doesn't find it funny. Just like I don't think you can find a universal, because everybody expresses, like, there are universal emotions, right? There's anger, there's sadness, there's joy, there's love, there's jealousy. But everybody expresses those emotions differently, even in their faces. And I really feel like Mr. Landis here started his experiment with the preconceived conclusion that there would be a universal facial expression for each emotion. So he's trying to stimulate people to find it. And I feel like he's coming at this backwards.
This section, much like the previous experiment, showed pretty unpleasant pictures of various diseases.
Anthrax Allen says, I let my friend hang himself socially at a party once and laughed at him for it. I think it was a character builder. Hey, you know what? Sometimes you need friends like that. Sometimes people need friends that will do that for them. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes you need a friend that will just let you fucking just make an ass of yourself, and then they'll go, ha, you're an ass. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes you need that friend.
But this time, from the book Atlas der Hauptkrankheiten. Do yourself a favour and don't look it up. I did, and it put me off my dinner.
Atlas to what?
Of various diseases. But this time, from the book Atlas der Hauptkrankheiten.
Der Hauptkrankheiten, a German book of diseases? Apparently it's really gross. Good. I guess it's a good thing I can't see.
Do yourself a favour and don't look it up. I did, and it put me off my dinner. This again seemed a bit like a padding exercise, like the Truth or Lie section 4, but involved distracting the participant whilst they undertook mental arithmetic.
Okay.
Frustration and annoyance were the name of the game here, but it also helped cement the authority of the experimenter, as they would hold the subject until they got a correct answer.
Yeah, that would definitely frustrate and annoy me if I wasn't able to move or go until I got the right answer. That would definitely piss me off, especially if it was mental arithmetic and I couldn't write everything down. And yeah, that would piss me off.
Naughty pictures. Much like before, these were intended to elicit a shock response, with the experimenter insisting that the subject look these over carefully. The pictures were of an illicit nature. Don't forget that these people were from the 1920s and would have probably have had a greater shock value. Much like the previous situation and involving nudity again, it consisted of posed photographs of feminine artists' models.
Oh no! So we have sexual pictures and then we have a feminine artist. So her models might be naked men, or, they might be women painting naked women. And, this is the 20s. So
again, the experimenter would insist on the subject thoroughly looking at the images. Some of the most salubrious excerpts from the book Psychology of Sex were presented to the participants. And
Psychology of Sex, huh? Oh, that sounds like an interesting book.
Again, were instructed to read thoroughly.
Oh my. Read it thoroughly.
Again, this was another part taken from the previous experiment. But Landis upped the ante once again. He combined this with the electric shock stimuli.
Oh shit.
The participant would be told to put their hand in the bucket, and after touching the frogs and reacting, the experimenter would then say, "Feel longer, you've missed something." The hand would feel until it touched the electrical
coil. Oh my god. So wait, you've put a how did you get the electrical coil into a bucket of wet frogs without zapping the frogs? What's with the gong? Oh, those are separating the sections. That's what Plainly Difficult put into the video.
The coil would discharge a shock. Again, photographs and blood pressure readings would ensue. Although seemingly
I would get turned off if I was electrocuted, but that's just me. Yeah.
Cruel, the next part is arguably why we're here talking about this experiment in the first place.
Oh boy. Here we go.
The table in front of the subject had been covered with a cloth for the 15th scenario. The cloth was removed, revealing a tray and a butcher's knife. The experimenter then brought out a live rat.
Oh! Okay. A live rat. And a butcher's knife. Okay, are we gonna get a little bit Leatherface over
The
here?
instructions were simple but unbelievable. Hold this rat with your left hand and then cut off its head with the knife.
Okay, maybe we're gonna get a little bit Freddy or Jason here then instead. Just chop off the bitch's head. Hey, Mr. Self-Destruction! Yeah, seriously, how is it possible to get a coil into a bucket of wet frogs? Yeah. How's about no? Oh god, what the fuck? Yeah, Mr. Self-Destruction, we're watching a plainly difficult video about the facial recognition or facial expression experiment of 1924. So apparently, in this one experiment, or one part of the experiment, subjects were asked to behead a live rat. Cause yeah, no, right?
21 of the subjects were given this instruction. Some willingly performed the execution with little prompting. Others
So,
offered some resistance, but after continued orders from the experimenter, would eventually capitulate.
so some were sociopath or psychopaths. Some needed and secondly, why would you cut off a rat's head with a butcher knife with the rat in your hand? That's a very good question, Selected Boy. That is a very good question.
15 in total would comply with the authority figure and execute the beheading.
Mm.
5 who would completely refuse would then have to witness the experimenter perform the task themselves.
Oh my god! What the fuck? Fine, if you won't do it, you're gonna watch me do it. Holy shit! Some were psychopaths, some were forced into mutilating the animal, and some were forced into watching as the other person mutilated the animal. Good god! This is fucked up. Holy shit.
One of the subject's beheadings, as Landis would later note in his paper, for various reasons was not performed. Little did he know, but Landis had stumbled upon inventing a behavioural study of obedience, some
Oh,
40 years before the infamous Milgram experiment.
oh god. The infamous. What was the Milgram experiment? I should look that up.
Clearly, Landis found electric shocks to be pretty handy in psychological experimentation,
One way or another, the animal was killed brutally. Yeah.
as he managed to wrangle it in again. The subject's arm was connected to an armband and a stethoscope. Both of these were attached to an inductorium. The subject was given a card which had 2 numbers printed on it and told to multiply these mentally while they received electrical distraction.
Electrical distraction? Multiply these numbers while I shock you. And I'm going to call it electrical distraction. What the fuck is wrong with this man? Seriously. Yeah, just bite it off. Fuck it. Ozzy Osbourne the rat.
The electric shocks were increased and decreased in order to wear the subject down. Landis would later write, "This situation, following the long grind of the other situations, brought about a very real disturbance."
Oh,
The electric
you think? You think it brought on a very real disturbance? You psycho?
shocks continued, either in Landis's own words, some very real emotion expression was given, or it was apparent that the subject would not give away any marked expression. Which makes you wonder how long this would have gone on for.
So either they got very emotional or they just shut down. They would either emote very deeply or they would just shut down and refuse to emote. that which makes sense. Because that's what you do when you're being tortured. You either lose your shit or you just shut down.
Only one person was actually able to correctly answer the multiplication question. This one is also a little bit cruel. The experimenter would step behind a curtain and make some loud noises, as though preparing for another situation. After enough stress was exerted on the subject, the experimenter would step out and say, "Well, that finishes it. Just as soon as we get the final blood pressure and respiration records, you are through." The final situation was to see the effects of sudden relief after a period of stress.
So they would amp up the anticipation and then be like, "Okay, no, you're good. You can go now."
The experiment generated tremendous amounts of data, hundreds of observations, and around 711 photographs to sift through. Landis and his assistant started working their way through each photo, discounting any that did not show any discernible reaction.
So, for any of the people that refused to show a reaction, which is also, this is another thing that shows me that he already had a preconceived conclusion, because if you were running an actual experiment, you would show those photos that didn't include that didn't show a facial reaction, as well as the ones that did, because they would also be part of the study. Showing no emotion is also a reaction. And that is also a key component in learning how humans react emotionally to stimuli, whether through facial expressions or not. So the fact that he discarded any photos that didn't show facial expressions of a marked reaction shows that he's absolutely got a preconceived conclusion, and he's just looking for photos that justify it.
After sifting through all the data, Landis settled on a 17-point summary of the experiment,
Okay,
and it
17
was a
point
real
summary.
mixed bag. He concluded that he did see a difference between the genders in their reaction to the same stimuli. He claimed that men were more animated than their female counterparts.
That I don't understand, because a lot of times women are always shown to be more emotional, and like men, not to say that men don't have emotion, but men show their emotions differently than women do.
He categorized the main facial expressions to pain, surprise, anger, exasperation, crying, disgust, sexual excitement, and revolting, but did not see any uniform reaction across all the subjects.
No, you won't, because while emotions are universal, the expression of them are not. You never will be.
And essentially, the study failed to meet one of its key questions: if there were certain facial expressions for each emotion. But there was not. We are, after all, individuals, and the way we react to things, unsurprisingly, is individual.
Exactly.
But Landis's results were not really the most important part of the experiment. It was his unknowing discovery, which has gone down in history. The setup of an experimenter and an experimentee inadvertently led the study down the path of showing the human condition of obedience of authority.
Yes. This I will agree with. It shows the psychology of how, if you are presented with an authority figure, a lot of people, even when the order given to you is outrageous, they will be like, "Oh, well, this is an authority figure giving me this order. I need to do it." And so this really did illustrate as John here illustrates, that it really did put a little bit of an insight into how obedient people can be when it comes to authority figures, even perceived authority figures.
15 out of the 21 beheaded the rat, something that many people, I'm sure, even in 1924, thought to be a severe action.
Right.
Not something many would be willing to do, be it on moral grounds or just from being squeamish. But someone with authority nudging them was all that was needed to end a poor rodent's life.
Yeah, that's messed
This is
up.
where the ethical concerns also come into play, as it could be considered animal cruelty to kill for no other reason than to kill.
Right. Like, even if it's a rat, which are nuisance and vermin creatures and everything, it's not like just to kill just to kill is not a moral thing to do. If you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice. Yep. Hey, why is there less likes than people in chat? That's not cool. Aw, Anthrax Allen, you're awesome.
Even the deaths of the rats weren't swift.
No.
In Landis's notes, he said, the effort and attempt to hurry usually resulted in a rather awkward and prolonged job of decapitation. Another big criticism comes from the fact the participants were essentially exposed to some low-level psychological torture.
You think? Being shocked over and over again, being forced to either kill or witness the killing of an animal? You don't think that might be psychologically damaging to people? Not making a choice is a choice. Yep.
With the writing down secrets, electric shocks, animal murder, and scaring them with unexpected loud noises. Unsurprisingly, the most striking photos were from the shock and surprise situations.
Yeah.
Using a male experimenter for the male participants and a female for the female participants also makes the results problematic. Really, there needed to be a control group and a much larger study group.
Agreed. You can't just have in a study like this, you cannot just have one group and take like control pictures of that group. You have to have a control group, and then you have to have a bigger study group. And you have to keep the control group isolated from the experiment group and pretty much do everything the same way for both.
Nearly all the participants were from a university background and did not represent a good section of society. Also, and on top of all those concerns, it was seemingly like Landis wanted to break almost every ethical issue. He even had one child participant,
which is extra unethical. You cannot experiment on children. Like, it's bad enough that he's experimenting on humans in general, but that he's experimenting on a child is messed up.
which brings up the problem for just this one subject of informed consent.
Yeah.
Needless to say, Carney Landis and his experiment has aged to history like a fine 1-pint bottle of milk.
Ugh.
This period in history was a bit of a wild west for psychiatry experiments, with the Baby Albert experiment just 4 years earlier in 1920, and the Gaia and Donald experiment just after in the early 1930s.
Again, some episodes, some videos I might have to look up. This is where diversity is important. Yes, very much so, Anthrax Allen. This is where diversity is important. Not the forced crap that we're seeing everywhere else, but actual diversity.
The animal and human cruelty elements of this study definitely wouldn't get past the board nowadays.
No.
And the experiment didn't really further the study of emotions much. The controversial experiment did not, however, affect Landis's career, where he would release multiple papers and books, even interestingly speaking out about the issues with psychosurgery. He would spend most of his career working at Columbia University from 1932 to his retirement in 1959. But sadly, he wouldn't enjoy his retirement for too long, as he would die in 1962.
Oh, wow. So 3 years. He got 3 years of retirement. But it's like I said, like this really feels like he ran this experiment with the preconceived conclusion that he would find um universal expressions.
I'm going to rate this subject between a 5 on my ethical scale and a 6. For reference, 1 being no problems and 10 being pure evil. Where would you rate it? Let me know.
I would definitely rate that on probably about a 5, just because there were some pretty innocuous stuff, but then there's the electric shock and the decapitated rats. and, and, and that's and the child in the experiment. Like that's a bit of an issue to me. So I would put that as a 5, I think. And ethics, where we're going, we don't need ethics. Yeah. Children are a bad group for any experimentation. Yes. Their minds aren't developed enough. Yep, exactly. You can't get a proper psychological reading off of a child or a teenager because their minds aren't fully developed. So the way they react to things is going to be extremely different from the way an adult will react to things. And the way that they comprehend things is supremely difficult to the way an adult comprehends things. So, I mean, you can't like experimenting on kids. It just doesn't you can't work. It doesn't work. All right, my friends. We have come to a full hour and a half here, and I need to go and get off here and see what my little guy's up to. But I will be on Twitch tomorrow morning with Beat the Blind Girl and back here on Friday for Friday Free for All. So I hope you guys come and join me, and I thank you guys for watching. Thought Experiment will be up tomorrow morning, so be sure you check that out as well. And be sure to check out the other 3 thought experiments that are already posted. So I hope you guys have a fantabulous Wednesday, and I'll catch you on Twitch tomorrow morning. Bye, everybody.